today, sorry, is about social media and marketing. And we have Vanisha Patel, who is a social media expert, and hopefully will be able to answer some of the questions that you all may have, and also some of the ones I have. And don't worry, Vanisha, they're not too tasking, and I'm not surprising you. And if you can't answer, don't. It's better for no answer than one that's fabricated. So Vanisha, just to kick off, I just want to maybe give the guys a little breakdown of who you are, your background, maybe a little bit about your career, just to break the ice, and then we can move on to some questions. So I'll leave it with you.
I actually left my job in 2016. Prior to that, I was working for the county council in Leicestershire. I was doing admin, VA, social media, events, and I was doing sort of anything and everything, and I absolutely loved it. But that year, I went to Thailand, and I thought there's got to be something more to do, like, you know, with life. And that year is when I left my full-time job. So in July, I left my job. I started doing VA work. I was doing email management, social media. And since 2016, my business has just organically grown to the point where, because I've been consistently showing up, I now help others, like in particular network marketers, to also show up on social media through their content, through storytelling. And because of the fact that I've taken my community and followers on this journey with me, I actually encourage my clients, my community, to do the exact same thing as me.
And when you say it organically grown, I always love when, and even I say it sometimes about how it organically grows, and we're sort of like, we don't really understand how it does, because we keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and then suddenly something happens. Is there any recipe you have for what happened, or it literally just came about?
It literally just came about because before I left my full-time job, I worked for like the council and different organizations. And because I'm one of those people that, you know, I love connecting with people, I love talking to people. So naturally, they connected with me on social media. And imagine over the years, like they just continue to watch me, continue to see exactly what I'm doing. And on the back end of that, that's when I got more referrals. That's when I got more clients. So it's just showing up consistently and being yourself and having fun with it as well.
Yeah, I find that too. I think I find that even with these podcasts, right? At the beginning, you start off and you're so straightforward, and you're very you're not relaxed, and it takes a little bit to get relaxed. And even now, I struggle sometimes, but you start getting used to it. One thing I have to know before I start even asking any questions, I love the fact that you do that on the back wall. So you've got your notes preparation. That's a sign of a genius. That's a study
what I'm known for. That's what I'm known for. I've actually, on the back end of these were released, I think it was last week, because I'm actually going through a big launch. So I think on Friday I did like a time lapse, and I'm sure 4 or 5, 6 people have all wanted these post-it notes.
Yeah, I mean, they are brilliant. It's something I do as well. Well, I used to do them. I had like 1 million of them up on the wall, just giving me guidelines of what I need to do, and also ideas of how I'm going to achieve them. So I really like that. I know it's totally unrelated, but I mean, maybe still related. If you have some ideas in your mind of what you want to do, aside from social media or just as a business, having post-it notes everywhere just helps you collect that mentality to be able to try and proceed on them, rather than just trying to sort of rely on your mind, because 99% of the time you might remember, but there'll be that 1%, and that 1% can end up being the best idea you had.
And I feel as though we live in this like life where we're constantly running about from one thing to the next and the next, and sometimes it's nice just to get all of that information out and just to see it there visually. It's like, right, what do I need to do next? What do I need to take off? And it's that feeling of crossing things out that I love to do.
I definitely agree with the approach. All right. So just to go back to the social media side. So obviously with our industry in travel, social media is heavily relied upon, especially for like independent agents. So when you're starting up a new business, I mean, if you'd have done it 10, 15 years ago, when this was still at its early stages and very new, it would be quite easy to gain traction with followers, engagements, everything. It was pretty easy back then. And now people are very used to it. It's become a daily part of life. And now the biggest challenge is the opposite. So when you're starting up a new company, people don't want to follow this necessarily. And they don't want to engage. Well, they do, but it's about how to correctly engage with them. Now, one of the questions I had was, but maybe based off your own approach and your own background, is what approach do you think is best when trying to attract interaction on social media? Not necessarily the likes, but the interaction via a comment.
Showing up as yourself. And I think that's the best thing to do, because even when you start a new business, yes, you know, you've got a product or a service to sell, but it's actually relatable content. So even if you're setting up, you show like the fun side, like behind the scenes, for example, my post-it notes, my notebooks, and all of these different things. Because imagine other people that are also starting a business, they might think, oh, Vanisha's also going through the same thing, because it resonates with them. It's relatable as well. And automatically it starts to create the whole know, like, and trust. And you start, without even knowing it, you start building the engagement that way.
Yeah, because we had a call. I think it was the last one or the one before on our podcast, and it was about how to utilize social media anymore. Because I mean, the old days, and it's still current to a certain extent. People are trying to utilize the Facebook ads and many other ads from social media, and we're trying to understand whether that has a purpose. Is it fit for purpose anymore? Is it, because when we think about it, and I think about my own timeline, for instance, and I see selling, right, I immediately hide it. I'd barely ever read it. So I guess what my question is to you, do you feel there is relevance still in the ad market? And if so, what would be the best approach to utilizing it? As in, would you go towards more demographic wise, or would you look at your own business model, or would you completely wave away from it and just try to promote your business instead of selling, if that makes sense?
I think, to be completely honest, you've got to look at it demographic wise, and you've got to think of your overall aim as well. So is the aim to grow your mailing list? Is the aim to, you know, what is your overall aim? Do you know exactly where your target audience is? Do you know, whether they're male, whether they're female, and the age group? Because the more specific it is, the more easier it is to create the ad and make sure that by the time it goes out, it is to the right people and you are sending out the right message.
Okay. And when you are paying for these ads, would you suggest, so let's take the case of a brand new independent travel agent. Okay. Now they've got 0 followers, but they have good stock and they have good holidays to be able to sell. They're just as competitive of what's in the market, or even better. But they can't gain the followers and they can't gain traction to be able to sell those holidays. Now, I think at the moment, and obviously during the COVID period, there has become a balance in terms of the larger businesses not having the cash flow to do said marketing, or the high volumes of marketing they were doing before. So I really think this is a good time to try and compete with them, not in the larger sense, but in the sense of trying to capture some of their custom. So what would you suggest to a new business that is trying to attract customers, as well as trying to sell the business, but sell yourself?
Maybe have some sort of an incentive. So as a new business, you might offer like a certain percentage off the holidays, giving them something to say, right, I want to click on that because of the fact that I might get £50 off my holiday. Because automatically, not only will you get interest, but you start to build your mailing list that way as well. By offering something, people will automatically assume, oh, it's 50% off, or, like a free downloadable as well.
Okay. And if you're trying to attract brand new custom, what do you think is the best social media tool? Because I mean, let's say us as an Abbey Home Stay, sorry, as an example, we found that when we're trying to use all the normal ones, so the Twitter, the Facebook, Instagram, etc. It's very difficult to get traction these days. Facebook wise, it obviously is more because we have specific target groups for travel agencies, customers wanting to buy travel. So you have those groups and you can connect into those groups. And you can try to be, as what you were saying a little bit earlier, being yourself, do not sell on groups because it's not a good idea. But you can gain that sort of traction. But what we found recently, and this is, I guess, more targeted at our business and not necessarily the independents, but LinkedIn seems to be something that's proving quite beneficial for us. I guess running back to my question, what social media is typically best for marketing, in your opinion?
So I think it depends on what business it is and where your ideal clients or customers are going to be. For example, in the wedding industry, you know that potential brides are looking at places like Instagram and Pinterest because they want ideas for like their table decor, what they want, you know, their day to look like. So you've got to think about, right, this is my target audience. Where will they be? Where will they be looking?
That's quite interesting, actually. So you said Pinterest, right? Enlighten me on Pinterest. I do not use it. I know of it and know it answers a few questions, but how would, let's say one of our agents is obviously wanting to build their business. This is one area I've never actually looked at. How would they utilize Pinterest?
So with Pinterest, you've got the option to create different boards, and within those boards, you can actually link it to your website. So it's really good to drive traffic to your website. So say, for example, me, I'm creating boards. Within my boards, I go onto your Pinterest, for example, and I pin different things that you've posted. So by pinning them onto my board, it's actually got your website links onto there, if that makes sense. So it's got more traction because of the fact that I can access your website.
Okay, so when you say boards, is it? Sorry, I'm really clueless on Pinterest. When you say boards, is that so? Would an agent be able to sort of put a holiday on there? So it's like 20% off Alicante or something like that.
So they can create different boards. So for example, for me, I might have one that's got like motivation. I've got another one that's got travel, and within that travel board, I can actually pin different things, so different images, and I can link that to my website.
Is there a way that you can get to the top? Because obviously, I'm assuming that if you select a board, let's say travel, you'd have a million categories, right, under it. Did Pinterest offer a way of getting to the top, like, you know, similar to Google PPC, or they do? They do. Interesting. Okay, I will have to look into that. That's actually quite interesting. Aside from Pinterest, are there any other social media outlets that are good for sort of marketing?
I think one that everyone is using at the moment is definitely Instagram, because you can have so much fun with it. You've got the option to post, like, obviously videos, images, going live. You've got your stories, and again, you can be really creative on there. So I think definitely for travel, people like to look for, like, you know, for inspiration. So if you search for places like New Zealand, Ibiza, all these places, they're going to generate so many different images.
Can I interrupt you? Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
On that, because for that case, you said Instagram, we can publish our own holidays and all that. Is that the one you mean? Or
yes, it is.
So with Instagram, you've got the option to post your own images, and you've got the option to post your own videos as well. It's very visual.
So it's a personalized, our one, yeah?
So you can create your personal one, but you can also create like a business account. So on there, you can literally just post things related to the business and the travel side of things as well.
Yeah, that's right. We can promote these things, because when the market is booming, so we can straight away, we are ready to go, our name and all that, no?
But even now, you can start promoting now, because imagine so many people have been itching to travel. So even if you're sharing like your tips around, you know, your favorite places, so by the time people are ready to book, you're already there, because you're still showing up, you're adding value.
Yeah, that's right. This is Ram. Okay, thank you.
Oh, apologies. Sorry. Just to go back to what we were discussing in terms of the new social media. I know I've asked already, but I'm really interested and intrigued to try and find new outlets. And I know you mentioned Instagram. Instagram for me is all, I mean, obviously it's a picture format social media. I mean, if we are to utilize Instagram, do you believe that hashtags are still of worth? And if so, what do you think is the best way to approach them? I recently had a discussion with someone about this. I know that having in your post the hashtags is a good idea, but I've also been told that putting the hashtags in a comment works better. Is that something that you've heard of before?
It's actually something that I've been playing around with, because with hashtags, you've got to make sure you're using 30 for each of your posts. So you can have them within the post itself, you can add it into the comments. But I think it doesn't make a difference where you add them. As long as you add them, like say, for example, your post goes out and add them a few seconds later, as long as you add them within that time frame, that's when it's going to be, you'll get better results by using those hashtags.
And the hashtags, right? So, and obviously there's a limit of 30, I believe, right?
That's right.
So with that, do you? I mean, I've heard there are these websites that pre-build hashtags for you. I'm a little bit. I don't know if they're any good or if they work or if they're successful. Have you used them in the past, or do you know of anyone that's used them to some extent?
I don't personally use them because I'd rather do the research myself, because I think of my ideal clients. What are they searching for? Because by me creating my own list, I can then monitor it and see, right, this post is getting more traction because of the fact that I've used these hashtags. Actually, I'm going to use a different set, because by me doing that research, I know how well they're doing and I know what changes I need to make to those set of hashtags as well.
So when you say research, how do you research hashtags?
So say, for example, for me, I think of my ideal clients. So what are they looking for? They might be looking for things like social media tips, social media content ideas. And by me using hashtags that are related to what I do, I'm more likely to come up. So for example, on the travel side, what sort of hashtags would people that are wanting to travel, what would they be using? Because a lot of people make that mistake. You've got to think of your ideal client or customer. What will they be using? If you're selling skincare products, you might have a hashtag that says skincare tips, and you've got a different set of hashtags which you use when you post about a skincare product. It's a whole different world, but it's like, it's so much fun once you get the hang of it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I have noticed is that there are repeated hashtags. But what I would like to understand is how you can sort of check to see which ones are at the top. Is there a way of doing that? Mm-hmm. And how would you do that?
So one of the things that I like to do is when you look at your Instagram post itself, you look at the insights. So when you pull it up and you look at the insights, you see how well the actual post is doing. And one of the options that comes up is actually hashtags. So it might say from hashtags 44, 100, 1,000, and you know that by using that particular set of hashtags, that post has done really well. And by knowing if one particular hashtag is doing really well, you've got to see whether it's trending, you've got to see whether other people are using it, and you've got to make sure you're looking at the numbers as well. And I think this is the mistake that people make, because you need to make sure that you're using the right hashtag with the right number in the right category as well.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of effort for social media. I do have appreciated that throughout the time. I mean, so one thing I ask as well is, I know Instagram obviously lets you upload multiple photos, mm-hmm. and I always base this on myself, and maybe I'm just lazy. But I never feed through the photos. I just look at the first one. Do you think, is there, I guess, is it more people like me that only look at that one photo, or do you think it would work to show multiple? So let's say in the case of a holiday, mm-hmm. you want to show everything from a holiday perspective to be able to sell it. It's very difficult to do that by just putting one picture, right? So let's say, I don't know, we're selling the Safiro Hotel in Mallorca. Now, Mallorca is amazing. It's a beautiful place, right? And would you suggest to do an actual photo of a landscape view of the hotel, or would you suggest to do something more destination focused? Let's say that we're purposely trying to sell the hotel, right? So the obvious answer is yes, actually the hotel, right? But I found that a lot of people, even if you show them the hotel, are still wanting to see a beach, which is obviously part and parcel of most holidays for those types of destinations. So I guess going back to my question, sorry, do you think multiple pictures work, or is it still the centralized picture? And if it is, do you think a 4-squared version showing bits and pieces works, or do you think that's a little bit too much?
I like having different ones, but I like the fact that you can also swipe across, because imagine one of the main things people want to see is the beach. They want to see where they'll be staying as well. So you literally tell them in the comments, swipe across to get, an idea of where you might be staying. Because yes, it's all good and well seeing an image, but you've actually got to tell them. So for example, even for me, if I write about my month and how it's been, I'd say literally swipe across to see what my clients are celebrating, the results that they're getting. And you can play around with it. You might have an image of 4, you might have the 1, you might have one where you swipe across, but literally monitor it to see which ones are doing the best.
Sure. And going to that question, going into a bit more deeply into that question. Sorry. So when you say about the swipe to see more, the one thing I have noticed, especially, I think it's actually on the live videos. So obviously the main promoters, they show their clip, and then you can swipe up, and that swipe up goes directly to the website. Now, I'm sure that most people who are watching this don't actually know how to do that. Do you know how to do that? And could you explain just very briefly how you would get to that stage? Because I think if you can, I think live video, especially the very small clips, I think they are working in our industry, especially with that swipe up option, because the immediate, when you're flicking through that feed, and you only get like, 1 second of an individual's time in that. And if you grasp it, and you grasp it well, you want to convert it. And the only way to convert it seems to be doing that swipe up. So just going back to that again, would you be able to explain it if you do know how to?
So the way to actually get the swipe up option in your stories is you need to have at least 10,000 followers. But there's actually a way around that, because when people view your stories, obviously you want them to click onto your website, you want to give that call to action. So there's 2 ways around getting that swipe up option. So when you, for example, if you go live, or you share something on your Instagram TV, you can share it onto your feed. Once that video has been shared onto your feed, you add it to your stories. Once you add it to your stories, there's actually different options within the stories. And it's actually, I think it's the 3rd one from the top, which is the little paperclip. When you click onto that paperclip, that will actually embed the link within your story itself. And that's when you can literally tell people, swipe up to view this. And then the second way around that is if you've got a product-based business and you link it to your shop, you've got the same option of adding it into your stories. And again, they're both 2 different ways to actually tell people to swipe up for more, or swipe up to view my shop link.
I think that should go down very well. I think we were actually looking at that ourselves, and it's interesting you say about the 10,000 followers, because I heard something about that. But I was thinking, how on earth can we get that reach, and how do we get that to the agent? So thank you for that.
It does, and it works really well, because say for example you've got a video, it might be a video like this, for example, you add it into your Instagram TV and you think, right, how can I get more views onto that? And the beauty of adding it onto your stories is you literally tell people, swipe up to view. And again, it's got more visibility just by doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's say I was talking to an agent the other day, and they are looking to do short snap videos of about 10 to 15 minutes of where they explain a destination and go into depth about 2 or 3 of the hotels that they want to push and sell. And I thought that was a good idea. I think I really believe in trying to shorten, but trying to bring people into the reality of a holiday rather than, just your normal picture. The one thing I didn't know is where best to sort of market that. I mean, obviously YouTube is the core for those types of videos. And do you know of any other social media outlets that would be beneficial to use that? And if not, what's the best way to push YouTube?
To be honest, I don't really use YouTube that often, so I wouldn't be able to advise, if I'm completely honest.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I guess it was just one of these things, because I know YouTube, especially like in the current times, is starting to lose its overall value. I think people are pushing away from it, probably because of the mass ads that companies like all of us have created. So I was just trying to see if there's any other avenue. I guess I'm sure TikTok doesn't do that length, or does it?
No, it doesn't. But Facebook, Instagram does that. So obviously you've got the option to add it onto your Instagram TV, and that's what Instagram want you to do. They want you to be spending more time on there. They want it to be addictive. So if someone, for example, they release different travel videos or whatever it is, they could release them every single week. So on a Thursday, you could talk about a particular destination and then say, join me next week as I'll take you somewhere else. So they know that on a particular day on Thursday, 11 o'clock, you'll be releasing another video.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I'll try and push that over to them. So I really like. So for me, when I think about holidays, I mean, obviously I've been in the industry for a long time, so I know most of where I'm going, and probably I'd say half the hotels are what I'm talking about. But we know the industry. We're so coveted in it. You know, we've been in it for so long. We want to spread that message of different destinations and different hotels and different experiences, because that's the whole point of traveling. It's to experience new things, new foods, new cultures, new everything, right? Not just the same repeated holiday, although, okay, there's nothing wrong with that, but you can add maybe another holiday in there somewhere to go somewhere new. I think unless someone is taught about the destination, they're not going to go there. And I give an example of that, is Cuba. So Cuba used to be, I think it was about in the top 300 destinations booked by UK passengers. It's now in the top 30 over a 3-year period. And it's just because of the sheer promotion of Visit Cuba and Visit Britain with their two marketings. And I just feel if we can do that individually from an independent agent perspective, or even an agency perspective, just to give people those snippets of other countries. Because what I find now, and especially during this time where we are in a very difficult position because of quarantine in multiple destinations, obviously we do have many destinations open. A lot of the destinations that are open, people are not even aware of what it has to offer. So I think those little clips can give that sort of perspective. Sorry, just going back to you. I do carry on sometimes.
But again, even like, to interrupt you, it's knowing, you know, what destinations are open, where you can go. Because even, for example, for me, I would love to be able to travel right now. But again, if I was to visit your social media profile, somebody else did, I'd love to know, like, what is open, when can I travel, is it safe to do so? And even if it's not safe to do so right now, at least you are sharing value and you're giving information. So by the time I do want to book somewhere, I'll automatically come to you, because I've already been reading up on that, and I know that you're the industry expert because you know where to go, where it's safe.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good idea. I think we might have mentioned that before to in one of the calls that we had. But I think utilizing this situation to be able to be an advice center, that was exactly what you said, builds that level of trust. So if you go on the sort of FCO website, it will advise you what destinations are open, what are closed, and what they're all. Most of them are open. It's about the quarantine more than anything. So I mean, yes, totally right. I think if anyone out there is looking to increase maybe interaction, but also sort of credibility, placing that information. I mean, as a customer of a holiday at some point, I'm sure you will be.
Definitely.
That's of good value. So obviously time is spinning fast already. I just want to ask you one question regarding the old style of marketing, which we refer to as blasts. So these are the email brochure or email push sell type of marketing. Now, I've noticed a heavy increase in the last 30 days with regards to this. And I believe that's because everyone's run out of marketing money. But do you think there is any value in that anymore? And I guess, have you seen examples of where that has worked? Because I mean, for me, and I guess again, this is more towards us, rarely do you get engagement, and rarely do you ever get a booking from an email blast. And I'm just trying to see, is it a case of people are doing it wrong, or is it just finished? Is it just not something that works anymore?
I think it does, because there's so many emails that I get, and even if they're not necessarily selling, they're adding value. And there's certain emails that I actually save and I look back at, because if it's little things like, you know, setting goals or planning my business, or, you know, things like whatever it is, I actually do look back at them. So imagine you send a set of emails, you're just adding value, you're sharing your tips and your knowledge. So by the time it does come to book, people are ready, because you've nurtured them already. And then you might say to them, right, we've got 10% off, or keep a lookout. So you're kind of drip feeding them in a way.
And if you was to, so I guess in the case of the independent agents, if there was to create a PDF sort of very blanket picture of what the holiday is, but very to the point, you still feel that works in terms of trying to engage for selling? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I worry about the pushes, because you get to a stage where you annoy people, even though that's the whole point of it. So your name's, I mean, there's still positives from that negative, because they remember your name and they never forget it. But it's about trying to transition that email to a booking. I guess you've already answered it, really. You do see the value in it, but I put it to you then, how many, who do you usually book a holiday with? Booking.com or something like that, I assume?
Well, it is more often than not, it's Booking.com, hotels.com. Like, it depends on where I'm going. So it's not just anyone in particular that I book with. Okay,
that's good news. That's good news. So with those, the reason I said those, because I know they're the worst at doing the email blast. So just going back to your answer, in the case of Booking.com, I know they blast like mad. So you still look at those emails and you still save them. So if they sent you, say, I don't know, a new a hotel and a new destination that you'd never thought of, but it looked amazing, would you star it? Would you save it?
See, it's funny, because I don't get emails from Booking.com. I think I just use their app. So it depends on who the emails are actually from, because even if it's like a trip with Ryanair or New Zealand, wherever I want to go, I'll actually look through the app rather than getting the emails.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, well, I'm gonna put the call to some questions from the chat. So I'm gonna have a quick look to see if there are any. There isn't just yet. I don't know if that means I'm asking some good questions, or whether
We've answered everything.
You're answering everything for social media. Again, guys, if you have any questions, just please put them in the chat, and I'll be happy to ask them.
Yeah, social media is very effective. Actually, when we went to holiday, we went actually Las Vegas and Grand Canyon and all that. We uploaded our videos and straight away to the Facebook. Then people are viewing this one, and also one of my friends is I think he's a he want to go to that trip also. He asked me all the questions and everything, where to go, where, and it was impressed him, because he's a businessman. He's a property estate agent. He's a multimillionaire. He want to go for the same trip and all that. He booked. Actually, he asked me
the same trip,
everything, and I instruct.
That's amazing.
Where to go and all the plan. You can go to, he want to go to California and Los Angeles. Then I said, you can stay in a couple of days in Las Vegas in hotels and then go to Canada. I gave the plan, so it's very impressive. So,
it is, because when you share those videos and those images, it's like you're taking people along that journey with you. So when I went to New Zealand this year, I went for a month, and whilst I was out there, I was sharing pictures of family, of food, of the lakes, and all these, Queenstown, and just the beautiful scenery. And so many people sent me messages saying, "Oh my gosh, this looks amazing. I really want to go." And it's just, just by doing these things, you're selling it without even realizing it.
Yeah, and also when you go to the the Hollywood, the mark and all that, it's very, actually it's live, it's attractive. It's very social media, we can do much more. Oh yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Vanisha, one question I do have, and maybe this is because of how busy I was. Stella's asking a quick question, and this is I didn't know about this, but it's actually a good one. So she's telling me that you have a one-to-one coaching service that you provide. Do you have any more information on this, and what exactly you provide in that one-to-one?
So in that one-to-one, I actually make it bespoke to my actual client, because when it comes to social media, I'm sure you'll agree, there's so many different things to think about: what platform to use, who your ideal client customer is, really nailing that down, identifying their pain points. So in the one-to-ones, it's like an 8-week program. And in that, I break it down saying, right, let's focus on your social media goals. Let's work out who that ideal client is, who that ideal customer is. What are they struggling with? What language are they using? Because by the time you start to identify these things, then you know exactly what to write about in your content. And that's what I do with my one-to-one clients. I actually say to them, right, we'll focus on this week. The following week, we'll look at content. It's about bringing it all together so that by the time they do show up, they know what images to use, they know what language to use, but it's tailored specifically for them.
It's interesting. It's interesting. And another question, I guess, is still related on this one from one of our agents. She's asking, how does your social media presence compare to the competition?
Oh, see, this is something that I used to be really scared of, because there's so many people that are doing social media, but it's being yourself. It's being yourself, and that's what people are drawn to. So the same way that when I do my videos, I make mistakes, and this is what I'd be. So if you look at my videos, you look at my group training or whatever it is, this is what I appear to be, and people are naturally drawn to you just by showing up. So yes, I used to be afraid of the competition, but then I think there's nobody out there that's like me.
That's a good answer. So, Stella also says to me that you've got your own Facebook group. Now, obviously, we'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And also, I haven't had a chance to look at it myself, but I will do after this for sure. Is that a group where you are sort of providing helpful information and free information? And if so, are our agents able to join this group and be a part of it?
Yes, so it's a free group, and the whole idea of me setting it up was just to give lots of free information and value around social media. So I've got videos about planning, saving time, my favorite topic, hashtags, what platform to use. And it's not about me adding value in there. I actually ask other coaches, for example, so the fear of not being able to go live. And I add value sharing my social media tips, but I like to encourage others. So for example, you could go live in there and talk about travel and what's happening, and when you are ready to book, because then everyone gets to learn from each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a good idea. When did you launch that?
Last year, and it's a nice small group that's really growing, and it's good because then you get to promote your business as well. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I just think if any of the agents are interested, I'll share the details afterwards, so you can join the group. We try to always promote everyone, not from a selling point of view, but to add value to their own business. And I think if you can, especially where, in an environment like a group where you can discuss these sort of things, and you don't necessarily have to ask over the phone or be sort of prompted on it. You can ask in your own time, in your own comfort zone. So I think those sort of tools really work. Is there anything else on your side that you are seeing sort of different in terms of social media and marketing? Is there anything new that's coming? Because what we find, especially in travel, is we have exhausted most avenues of everything because of our industry really needing marketing and it being a very, very aggressive margin structure in our industry. Is there anything new, or is there anything that you would suggest to do that isn't the norm in terms of marketing?
I would look at what's worked really well for you and do more of that, because I think there's so many new and different things you can be doing, but it's actually taking a step back and thinking, right, this has worked really well. So even, for example, for me, when I do my Instagram TV lives and I share tips and I value, I do more of that. So even though I'm doing less, I know that that's really making an impact.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm just going to do another double check and see if we've got any more questions that's come through. Doesn't seem so, which means we've covered quite a lot, I'm hoping. So, I mean, we towards the end of the call, and usually before you ask questions, I always ask 2 questions to anyone joining our podcast, and they are not relevant to your subject, so it's nothing too tasking. It's just 2 simple questions. So we always ask what travel means to someone. So my question to you is, what does travel mean to you?
Freedom.
Freedom.
Tanning. But the main one is freedom. Like, it's just being able to go to actually explore as well. So can I have freedom and explore?
You can.
So it's just being able.
Had paragraphs before. So.
Yeah, being able to go somewhere. Like, one of my favorite places was Venice. Being able to go and just explore and just really take in like the culture and the food. You know, it's just one of the best things in the world. Exactly. I feel like you can't have one word. It's freedom, it's travel, it's experiences.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Venice, which leads me on to my second question. And we always say it doesn't matter, you can't choose the country that you're in or from. So we ask, what is your favorite travel destination and why? And you have to pick one. Everyone always picks 2, 3, 4.
Can I pick 2? Okay, so one of my favorite ones that I did this year was definitely New Zealand, because I feel like, because we've got family there, we managed to do so much. But my second one, I've got to say too, is China. It's the Great Wall of China, because I did that for charity, but I remember thinking back to it and just looking and just taking it all in. And I think that's something that everyone has to do. Like, there's too many, but they're my top 2, and then Venice follows. Venice is third.
So you managed to get away this year. That's good. So
yeah, I managed to get away, and then we got back. It was literally locked down, and everyone said, "Oh, you've been away for a month. That's you done for the year." So, okay.
And I have another question which I'm adding to it. 2020 travel or 2021?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'd love to say both, because I really want to go to Dubai at the end of the year and New Zealand, but I just don't know. I don't know. Like, would you say it's safe to go? Do you think it's best to wait until next year?
Dubai, I would say you're fine. Absolutely fine. They were the quickest to react than anyone in the entire world. I have friends over there, and they were locked down, I think, for 2 days, and they cleaned everything in the entire Dubai in 2 days.
but then I think what scares me is the actual traveling there and being on a plane, and I feel like I'll just sit there and I won't move.
Yeah, well, this is the fear, right? So a lot of people fear about the actual plane. Most, and I'd say a majority of planes have 4 air filtration systems on them, and those air filtration systems are killing bacteria and viruses every point in time throughout your journey. Wow. including coronavirus, right? So if you noticed, have you ever been on a plane and you've seen multiple people coughing and sneezing, regardless of coronavirus, before the times when we had flus, colds, etc.? Have you ever sat next to someone with a cough or a cold. A lot of people have. I see by your short face, maybe you haven't, but I'm sure you've been on a plane where they have been, right? And you haven't caught it. Despite you could be on a plane for 10 hours. Now, if that specific cold would have infected everyone, right? Just by the law of averages. But because of the filtration systems on the plane, it's actually cleaning the air. And a lot of people don't know that. They think that you're still breathing the same air, which is impossible because we breathe out CO2, right? So we have to filtrate the air inside the plane, and that kills off bacteria. So it's actually quite safe up there.
So does that mean you'll be traveling this year?
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to get away. Unfortunately, I have kids, so it's not that easy. But I say unfortunately. I'm fortunate to have kids, but holidays are slightly more different these days. But yeah, of course, if I get a chance, I am a big fan of Mallorca. It's almost like my second home. So I will definitely get there at some point this year for sure. Regardless of the quarantine or not, I think if we're a leader of travel, we need to lead as an example. And a lot of people are fearful, you're right, of getting on planes and going through the whole procedure. I would say the airport procedure is probably the more riskiest because of how it's dealt with, but because of the social distancing, and I think they've had some time to sort of get used to this and the environment. I think especially public have really taken to it in that sense. And, you know, you have to wear masks. It's regardless. You can't get on a plane without a mask now, unless obviously you have health conditions. So I definitely think this is a new norm. I think people need to kind of see this as this isn't going to go away for some time. Those masks are going to kind of be apparent probably throughout 2021 as well. So not to be afraid, to obviously look at the FCO guidance or ask a travel agency like us or any of the independents travel agents on the call, and just get some advice from them and ease your mind, right? Because there's many destinations that are, especially, let's take, for example, Cyprus, right? Cyprus had very little cases. You're fine to go there. You're absolutely fine to go on holiday there. There hasn't been any peaks in any of it thus far. Fingers crossed it stays that way. But you're fine to go there and fine to come back, right? That's a very popular destination. And one thing that the Cypriot tourism board is doing, I think alongside the government of Cyprus, is if there are a peak in cases and you are needing to fly home, they are covering those costs. So there's some nice things going on. There's some destinations where they're trying to help, because obviously you have to understand from a lot of destinations, they are very, very reliant on travel, right? In terms of their economy. So if you say, for instance, I don't know, let's go back to Mallorca again. So Mallorca is heavily reliant on British travelers and German travelers going into their destinations, and without it, they will struggle, right? So we of course need to ensure that it's safe and it's a safe environment for everyone. But once it is, and it is at that point, be sure that everybody involved, especially from travel, has taken every step to make sure that there is the minimized risk, right, as much as possible.
And I think this is what things that people aren't necessarily aware of, because even one of my friends, we were having this discussion, but we don't know, for example, all these things that you've discussed. I never knew about it. So it's really good and it's reassuring to know that actually I can travel and it's not as bad as I thought.
No, I mean, I think a lot of people think it's bad. I mean, to be honest, like you could go anywhere in England or United Kingdom and still have the same risk, right? So a staycation is not any more riskful than you getting on a plane. It really isn't, and that is a reality. I obviously know that people have fear in their mind, and I can't get rid of the fear, but it's just to try to ease people's minds. And I think when we come back to what this topic is in terms of social media, you're quite right at the beginning of this call. If you can utilize social media to give that advice, I say this to everyone on this call, because you can clearly see that Vanisha didn't have that information, right? And that information kind of took her back, right? Because I think the majority of people are thinking 2021 because they think this is going away. It's highly likely it's not, right? So we have to guide people in the right way and ease their minds to a certain extent, and try to offer as best options as possible, right? So if, let's say you want to entice travelers, but they're worried about going to a resort, right? Because of the thousands of people you can cram into a resort. How about you look into depth about the hotel and what the resort has done to mitigate those issues?
Exactly.
Or look at properties which aren't in a resort, which are more independent and have lesser volume of customers. And there's also other ways as well. So a lot of people are obviously booking room only. So room only is without any food or breakfast or something like that. Now, I think there's a huge disadvantage to customers doing that, because there are other board bases that you can book and more or less similar price, so you get a lot more for your money. And what a lot of people are not, maybe it's us as an industry's fault for not trying. Well, we are doing our best to give as much information as possible. In terms of those eating areas, those are separated out. There are visors across all the food. Those people also have visors, so there's double visor between the food and them. And obviously they're wearing gloves, and it's actually more secure than a restaurant. So you're totally right. I think if we utilize the social media to advise people of this, I think they'll feel a bit more calm and ease about it, rather than, oh, I'm going to a foreign country where if I get it, I'm in a hotel with 1,000 people. It's so likely I'll get it. The reality is, you've gone into Tesco that day, which has probably also had 2,000-3,000 people walk in and out. So it's that risk factor is always going to be there.
And again, it's adding value. It's reassuring them. It's like when I came back from New Zealand, I had all this content and all these things I wanted to write about, but I couldn't write about it. I had things that I wanted to sell, but straight away I thought, right, what do my audience need from me right now? Everyone has gone into lockdown. So the first thing I did was I released a video about the top tips of working from home, because I work from home anyway. So I shared a video on top tips. I repurposed that. I shared it into my Facebook, and straight away people think, oh, I can relate to that. So you've got to think about, what do people need right now? And it's all these things that you've mentioned. It's giving them that reassurance that it is okay to travel, that it is safe. They've got all these precautions and all these things. Like, I've learned so much, and I feel better thinking, right, maybe I can travel this year.
Well, I'm glad I managed to. I'm glad I managed to sell. Cool. No, it's been amazing talking with you, Vanisha, and I really appreciate your time today. It doesn't look like we've got any more questions, and we're pretty much out of time anyway. But again, I just want to say thank you very much for joining. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, of course, no problem at all. No problem at all. You actually surprised me with Pinterest. I'm gonna look at that in a moment. I wrote that down when you said it.
Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I'll see how it best works. And yeah, thank you for your time, and thank you for everyone for joining the call today.
Thank you, everyone.
I will be putting this on YouTube, so I will be doing some editing later. Something, if Vanisha, do just before we end this call, is if you could just say your one-to-one coaching session name, and also the Facebook group name. That would be great. We'll still share it after this call, but just so you can advertise it on the video too.
So my one-to-one coaching is called Creating Content with Confidence, and I do an 8-week program where I work with you on a one-to-one basis. And the name of the Facebook group where I share lots of free tips is called Up Level Your Social Media.